So let's talk about Severance. It is one of the most popular shows out right now, and I've just been completely obsessed with it. It's Apple TV's avant-garde combination of entertainment mixed with social and political criticism, and surprisingly, it's directed by Ben Stiller, of all people. I mean, I knew he was talented and made funny movies, but I didn't know he had this deeper level of analysis to him. Now, the really cool thing about the show is that it holds a mirror to our current real-world political and cultural climate. It explores the unsettling intersection of work-life balance, corporate control, and personal identity, and it portrays the 1% as being shady and in charge, which we all know they are, while all others underneath them slave away to their benefit.
Gentlemen, in exactly 5 days, we will be $100 billion richer.
It also touches upon the rapid development in technology and the capacity it has for evil, and it explores the question which I want to talk about today, which is whether or not we are heading into a Severance type of society. Now, I know not everyone has seen the show yet, and while I'm only slightly judging you, it is fine. I will give you a quick summary before diving into the political and psychological elements, the Easter eggs, and the symbolic layers, and who knows, maybe after watching this I will have convinced you to start binging the show. However, I will be giving spoilers, so beware, but before we dive in, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a future upload. Okay, so the show centers on our main character, Mark Scout, who is played by Adam Scott, and he is an employee at Lumen Industries, which is this mysterious corporation where employees undergo a surgical process called severance in their brain. And this procedure basically splits their consciousness, creating a divide between their work cells, which they call innies, and their personal cells, which they call outies, and there are no memories crossing between the two. So they're basically two completely separate people, but in the same body.
I am a person. You are not. I make the decisions. You do not.
At work, Mark and his team, Helly, Dylan, and Irving, work in macrodata refining, which we don't know what that is yet, but essentially they're performing cryptic, seemingly meaningless tasks in a sterile, surreal office environment, and they have multiple supervisors, Miss Casey, who we'll talk about later, Mr. Milchek, and the evil Harmony Cobell. The company has this weird cult-like atmosphere centered around the worship of Lumen's founder, his name is Keir Egan, and their belief system is rooted in Keir's 4 tempers: woe, frolic, dread, and malice. All 4 of these things are presented as the fundamental components of human nature. Employees are taught to balance these tempers and are punished when they stray away from them. The second setting is the outside world, where Mark's outie, his real self, grapples with the grief of losing his wife, unaware of the secrets that his innie, work self, uncovered. When a former colleague, PD, contacts Mark outside of the office, it sparks this dangerous unraveling of Lumen's true purpose, revealing a whole bunch of stuff: conspiracy theories, mind control, other ethical horrors. Okay, summary over. Now let's dive deeper and explore how close we truly are to becoming severed people. So politically, Severance is a big middle finger to corporate America. It's this scathing allegory for corporate exploitation and the erosion of personal freedom, reflecting late-stage capitalism. And Lumen Industries is a biotech corporation with cult-like overtones, and it uses this severance procedure to exert extreme control over employees, even so far as tracking their bathroom usage.
I'm using the bathroom.
Sound familiar? Well, it probably should, because it literally mirrors real-world workplace surveillance. For instance, Amazon uses these workplace sensors to track employee locations, movement, and monitor productivity. Amazon employees essentially had these little tags or cards that had sensors in them, and it tracks how quickly items are scanned, how many items per hour, how long employees wait between scans, etc. And this parallels Lumen's monitoring, where any time-off task is scrutinized. And workplace monitoring is not going to get any more lax. I mean, in 2024, global information security spending was estimated at around $183 billion, and it's expected to grow even more this year by about 15%. So clearly, we are moving closer and closer to severance-level surveillance. And we're even starting to see that in our government right now with Elon Musk and Doge, right? The Department of Government Efficiency. Elon's goal is to make the government more efficient, so he sent out an email to federal workers, and they have to reply with a list of their recent accomplishments. This is a form of workplace monitoring, and if it's deemed that these workers haven't been productive enough, they could be let go. Also, the creepy, never-ending smiling portraits of Keir Egan all around the Lumen building has this Orwellian feeling, like a Big Brother is watching kind of vibe. So really, Severance is just showing us what could happen if we let corporations have too much power over our lives. Dramatic season 1 finale, the innies found a way to actually escape into the outies for just a short period of time. After this, the public was like, why are these innies trying to escape? So there were a lot of concerns that were raised about how Lumen is treating their employees. So Lumen tries to implement these eerie new management changes by forcing all innies to watch a welcome video.
You probably don't recognize me from this angle. I'm the Lumen Administrative Building. But what makes a building truly happy? This question came to light when 4 NDR workers, dissatisfied with their severed lives, conspired to mount what Lumen historians will forever call the Macrodat Uprising.
They also try to make things right by doing very surface level, honestly stupid actions, like providing more snacks at the vending machine and limiting the cameras around the office, but we all know this is just a ruse to keep the employees working. And this is probably one of my favorite parts of the show because it's such an obvious FU to big corporations, because it's similar to how companies in the real world handle backlash with fake apologies. For example, Pepsi's apology for their commercial that trivialized the BLM movement, or McDonald's apology for their commercial that compared a Big Mac craving to depression, or that infamous Peloton ad where a man gifted his wife a Peloton implying she needs to work out.
You ready?
Yes.
Now.
A Peloton? Give it up for our first time ride.
All right, first ride. I'm a little nervous, but excited. Let's do this. 5 days in a row. You surprised? I am.
Race in Boston, 50 rides.
She just said my name. A year ago, I didn't realize how much this would change me. Thank you.
And a lot of people online are calling out the ad for being sexist.
Men, please do not do that for your wife's birthday or Christmas. It's a horrible, horrible idea. But these are just a fraction of the examples out there. Not to mention that Lumen uses child labor.
Mark W.
Why are you a child?
Because of when I was born.
And I hate to tell you this, but your favorite companies do too. Hershey. Moving on, the portrayal of Lumen's cult-like reverence for their founder, Keir Egan, with his teachings treated as some kind of weird gospel and creepy portraits of everyone smiling, aligns with the real-world cases of corporate cultures resembling cults. Like, there have been accusations towards Apple, Google, Facebook, YouTube, and other companies for their blind loyalty towards political agendas, going so far as to censor discussions around opposing viewpoints.
And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years, when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further.
On top of that, consumers, just like Lumen employees, have brand loyalty to companies like Apple, and they lionize Tim Cook as a visionary, just as the Lumen employees do with Keir. Now, when Severance employees do have complaints or concerns, they're brought into this isolated, sterile room with a wellness specialist named Miss Casey, who is later revealed to us to be Mark Scout's deceased wife on the outside. These sessions are presented as a privilege or reward to the employees. However, they're really just engaging in manipulation tactics. They start with an affirmation of Lumen's ideology, and that sets that tone of reverence and obedience. They basically just do a bunch of hippy-dippy shit. The employees are encouraged to look inside themselves, repeat phrases painting Lumen as a savior, and they participate in infantilizing and ritualistic activities related to Keir's four tempers.
All right, Irving. What I'd like to do is share with you some facts about your Audi. Because your Audi is an exemplary person, these facts should be very pleasing. Just relax your body and be open to the facts. Try to enjoy each equally. These facts are not to be shared outside this room. But for now, they're yours to enjoy.
Now, I believe this is a very obvious shot at companies like Google, because if you didn't know, Google provides this program for their employees called Search Inside Yourself, and it basically aims to teach emotional intelligence through meditation. To me, this seems just like the company is reversing the blame from employer negligence to employees needing to change their perspective. Severance also has this really clear criticism of religion. I know we already talked about the worshipping of Keir as some kind of god, and the blind loyalty and the four tempers, but it goes deeper than that. If you take a look at the compliance handbooks, they basically mirror Bibles. Employees are forced to read them, and the layout and structure mimics the Bible with sections and verses.
And thou in each swing of your axe or swipe of your pen the sum of your affections, that through me they may be purified and returned.
Hell is also referenced multiple times to refer to Lumen's workplace. The first episode of Severance is called Good News About Hell. On Helly's first day there's also a shot that says, "Hello, Hell." We also find out in the season finale that Helly's Audi is actually the daughter of Lumen's current CEO, James Egan, and a descendant of company founder Keir Egan. Helly's Audi is set to take over the company in the future, and the fact that her name has hell in it is definitely not a coincidence. With Severance, there are no coincidences. Now, not only does Lumen perform severance procedures on those they want to control at their disadvantage, but the elite, most rich characters use severance on themselves for personal gain. The senator's wife, Gabby, had the severance procedure so that she wouldn't have to experience the pain of childbirth. Rather, she let her innie take on that pain for her. This suggests elite complicity, and I think it echoes how powerful entities in our world might benefit from technologies, or potentially even prepare for broader societal control. I mean, you could liken this to the debates over gig economy exploitation, data commodification, or even just specific platforms or technologies being used to push political agendas of a certain party. And although the show talks about big companies as a whole, I wouldn't say that it specifically targets a particular individual. I mean, it's not like there's a multi-million-dollar tech mogul out there who wants to plant chips in people's brains to merge human consciousness with AI, right? But anyways, the show doesn't just talk about politics, it also dives a lot into the human psyche. Psychologically, Severance delves into identity fragmentation and alienation, with the severance procedure itself mirroring the real-world experiences of many workers feeling so disconnected from their jobs they don't even feel like the same person outside of work. The show also takes a page out of the historic Milgram's obedience study. I remember I learned about this in AP Psych in high school. They basically measured the willingness of participants to obey an authority figure who instructed them to perform acts conflicting with their personal conscience. Participants were led to believe that they were assisting an unrelated experiment in which they had to administer these electric shocks to a learner. These fake electric shocks gradually increased to levels that would have been fatal had they been real, and subjects were definitely uncomfortable administering the shocks and displayed different degrees of tension and stress, some of them from just sweating to others who were digging their fingernails literally into their skin, and some people even had nervous laughing fits or seizures. Every single participant paused the experiment at least once to question it. However, most continued after being assured by the experimenter. This highlights how monitoring increases stress and burnout, which is definitely a theme that's echoed in the show's break room, which is where employees are punished by repeating apologies until they mean it.
I read it 300 times yesterday.
259. Again, please. Now.
Forgive me for the harm I've caused this world. None may atone for my actions but me. And only in me shall their stain live on. I really am sorry, okay? I'm sorry.
No paraphrasing. Again.
How many times?
1072.
Mark's dual existence, with his outie grieving his wife versus his innie cluelessly working, reflects that fragmentation that many people experience, performing different selves at work versus at home. And this phenomenon is only exacerbated by remote work surveillance, because employees always have that pressure on them to be actively using the computer at all times. And obviously, the Milgram experiment was fake harmful work, but that just makes me question the quote-unquote goodness of the macro data refinement job that Mark, Helly, Irving, and Dylan are working on. As a team, they categorize numbers based on the emotions that the numbers evoke, such as woe, frolic, dread, and malice, and I wonder if the numbers the MDR team sorts represents brain activity, neural patterns, or even personal memories, possibly their own. Now stick with me on this one, but if the MDR team is handling data linked to brain patterns or memories, then they might be refining the very system that controls their minds. It's a very twisted idea, but they could be tweaking their own psyches or somebody else's without even knowing it. Or maybe the MDR team's work feeds into this giant surveillance or data mining scheme. The numbers could be personal identifiers, kind of like coded versions of social security numbers used to track or profile people, maybe even beyond the company walls. Sorting the numbers into 4 pillars might build psychological or behavioral policy. For example, tagging data with, let's say, malice, right, could flag aggressive tendencies, helping Lumen predict or manipulate how people act, which could be perfect for control or profit. As we all know, everything in the show is very secretive. We don't get told a lot of information, but there are a lot of Easter eggs and symbols that play into the possibilities, and I think that these in-show Easter eggs reflect the phenomenon referred to as priming. If you've ever seen the movie Now You See Me, the magicians prime an audience member to choose a specific number by flashing him the number throughout the day.
They programmed his mind to make him go to Las Vegas, and then they kept reinforcing it until he did. They trailed him, they studied him, nothing was left to chance.
Pardon, monsieur. I got his measurements.
He had no idea he was their target, and they simply activated him in Vegas.
And once again, it's almost like if you subtly show someone an image of a luxury car before they make a decision about a purchase. they might be more inclined to choose a higher end option due to the unconscious influence of the image. For example, in Severance, there is a license plate that reads Remedium Omnibus, which basically means cure for humanity. The Severance procedure is presented as a gift to humanity, the most innovative cure that removes all the negative experiences from people's lives by tending to one of Keir Egan's principles. Whoa. It's sold as a solution to work-life balance, but boy, is it more than that. The license plate puts that positive reinforcement in there without them even knowing it. It unconsciously makes them think that severance is a positive thing. There are plenty of real-world examples of this, but the one that comes to my mind is from the 2000 US presidential campaign, where Bush aired an ad attacking Al Gore's healthcare plan. They briefly flashed the word rats before bureaucrats, which implied a negative connotation.
Your prescription plan, bureaucrats decide. The Bush prescription plan, seniors choose.
And priming is done very frequently to multiple characters in Severance. I mean, in the first episode, Helly wakes up with no memory whatsoever, and she's shown an orientation video explaining the Severance procedure and her role. It basically primes her to accept her new reality. Or in episode 4, where Helly is forced to repeat the same phrase over and over and over, which is a form of self-persuasion or priming. Now, other than the obvious political and psychological criticisms and tactics, there are a whole bunch of secret Easter eggs that play into this as well. Let's break them down. The first Easter egg is a lack of the escape key on the employees' computers, symbolizing the innie's inability to escape the work environment, similar to our real-world feelings of entrapment in jobs where employees lack autonomy. The next symbol is also my favorite symbol. It is the goats that are in the wellness department. While this isn't necessarily priming, it's still a cool symbol. Goats have this long history in religious and cultural context as sacrificial animals, notably in the biblical concept of scapegoat, where a goat is burned where the community sins and cast out. The goats may symbolize the innies themselves, workers being sacrificed for Lumen's goal while remaining naive. The MDR team's meaningless number sorting kind of parallels this, as they toil without knowing their purpose, much like the sacrificial goats unaware of their fate. The goats could also represent Lumen's experiments with cloning or biological manipulation. In our real world, goats are notably linked to cloning and science, and we know that Mark's wife passed away in the outside world, but she's still alive in the inside world. How might this be? Another possibility is the absurdity of goats being in the workplace could lend itself to the assumption of a simulated reality. Maybe the Severance floor isn't physical like we think it is. And there are other possibilities, such as a food source for something evil that's keeping Keir Egan immortal.
You can't take them yet, they're not ready. It isn't time. But get the hell out of here. Go!
Or that they are used for mind harvesting by extracting memories or emotions from the goats and linking them to the MDR team's number sorting, which could suggest that Lumen commodifies consciousness. But don't our real-world corporations also commodify consciousness? Now, there are so many more Easter eggs in Severance other than these, and people online have really been cracking the codes. A lot of the symbols play more into the plot of the show rather than critiquing our real-world situation, so I'm not going to cover too many more, but here are just a few. The colors, red, blue, and green, are in here a lot. In the parking lot, Mark parks his neutral-colored car in between both red and blue cars, showing him teetering that line of reality and simulation. Helly has red hair and wears a blue dress. Mark owns red and blue fish. Mark's house is blue and Irving's house is red. The envelope given by Petey is red. The office is red and blue paper. Kobal's office floor is blue. I can go on and on and on about how many different examples there are of this simulated reality versus real world motif. And this is a famous motif, right? It was used in The Matrix, it was used in Alice in Wonderland, where they have to choose between the worlds. Green, on the other hand, is often used to represent sickness and was even one of the colors used in the first version of the Severance chip. Now, if you want to find out more about these symbols and Easter eggs, you can scour online, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty more in the episodes to come. But now I want to know what you guys think of Severance. Has it made you put a little more thought into our real-world big corporations and their true motives? Do you think we are heading in the direction of Severance? I mean, years ago, we thought cell phones were an insane technology, and now look where we are. Go ahead and comment your thoughts and opinions down below, and if you have anything else regarding Severance you want to share, like conspiracy theories or more symbols, then go ahead and comment that down below too. Thank you guys for spending time with me in the Glass Room. I'm Joe Wheatley, and I will see you in the next episode.